what is unjust for me is the fact that it's always when it's the Igbo's turn for something that everybody starts talking about, no, it should be about merit. So yes, so my view is if we're going to run this turn by turn constitution, then zoning is also part of the turn by turn.
Is there a fear of having an Igbo man in power? Is there a fear that comes with that?
Well, I think so. I'm half Edo, half Urobo, so I'm not an Igbo man. So I don't want anybody to think that I'm speaking this way because I have some Igbo roots. But the truth of the matter is, there clearly is. If you look at videos of interviews, Ahmadu Bello, who was former Sadana and former premier of the Northern region, gave many, many years ago, he made his views on Igbos known. He detested them. And you can see it in the fact that even in the structure of our country, every, in quotation, zone has 6 states. The Igbos are the only ones with 5. You can see with political appointments, Igbos always seem to be shortchanged. I think it was only Jonathan and Obasanjo that took steps to begin to give Igbos prominent appointments. So you can see with regards to ports, we should have ports across most of the coast of Nigeria, but you can see that there is a reluctance to build ports in the southeastern part of the country because there's a fear that if you build ports, Igbos will become rich and start carrying their shoulders, as they say in Nigeria. So you listen to the things Buhari has said. There was a time we were asking him questions about the southeast, and in his tone, he said, what else do they want? So you just need to listen to the tone of politicians. You can tell that for reasons best known to them, they detest the Igbos.
I'm not one who loves to resurrect the past, but do you think that Nigeria still needs to have an honest conversation about the Biafran War?
Well, where I would disagree is, I would say you should want to resurrect the past. So I don't think there's anything, I think it's, with all due respect, I don't think you should even be saying, I'm not one to resurrect the past. You should actually say, I am one who resurrects the past. Every journalist, student, any profession you're in, if you don't look at the past, then you won't even know where you are going. Because as the wise man once said, there is nothing new under the sun. So people who are the smartest in their field are people who have learned from the past or who always interrogates the past. So yes, we need to have an honest conversation about the Civil War. If you remember, it was a very bizarre war in the first place because Murtala Mohammed and his gang seized power and they called the name of their coup Operation Araba, which means we are separating, we're leaving the country. So you planned a coup on the basis that you are seceding, and then you killed thousands of Igbos. Those Igbos then said, okay, we too, we are leaving. And then you then turn around and fight the civil war saying, no, Nigeria must be one. So I'm thinking to myself, does this even make any sense to anybody? You planned a coup to leave the country, the rest of us say we are going to, and then you turn around and say, no, nobody's going anywhere, and therefore millions of people should die because of your stupid petulance. So these are the questions we need to be asking ourselves. So I agree that it needs to be interrogated. There are many families that lost parents, lost brothers, lost sisters. There's so many traumatized people in Nigeria because of the Civil War. There's a large Igbo diaspora in Britain and in America. Many of them carry the scars of the Civil War. So you cannot create an inclusive country if you don't talk about the past and apologize for the crimes that were committed against the Igbo people.
I mean, of course, I would agree with you. I wasn't saying that completely we should forget the past. I mean, one of my favorite lines is, those who do not learn from history are doomed to repeat its mistakes. But, you know, of course, there are certain things that happen in the past you learn from and you move on. I was just, making up the point that because I'm an Igbo man, some people might think that that's why I'm so concerned about it. But I agree with you that, yes, there are still issues that need to be dealt with from that. Well,
I would also say again that yes, because you're an Igbo man, that's why you should want to know the past. There's nothing wrong with it. It's just like telling me that because I'm a Christian, that's why I want to read the Bible. Well, yes, that's the whole point.
Yeah, sure.
I'm half Edo, half Urobo, so I'm very interested in Edo history. Anybody who has a problem with that knows where to go, but they cannot tell me as an Edo man that I should not be interested in Edo history. So you as an Igbo man should, if you want, you should spend every day reading books on Igbo history. That is nobody's problem. That is your prerogative as an Igbo man.
Absolutely. So yeah, just a quick one. I know people in a sense, they will tell you that there's a huge problem with religion in Nigeria. Maybe that's the key issue. But when you look at it, do you think that religion or tribalism and all this, which of the two do you think is more of a problem in Nigeria?
I think religious extremism is a problem. We can see the effects in northern Nigeria. Religious extremism over the years has destroyed the economy of that region. In fact, since I was young, you always hear stories where for no reason there'll be a riot in Kano. They'd go to, I think, Sabongari, which is the Igbo part of the town. They'd go there, attacks will be launched and innocent people will be killed. And over time, a lot of people who used to have businesses in Kano, in Kaduna, in Jos, many of them began to move back south. And that is one of the reasons why the economy of the north has gone downhill and Boko Haram has arisen. So yes, religious extremism is a problem, but also tribalism too is a problem. The Nigerian constitution, for example, is a product of tribalism. So tribalism is basically written into our constitution, and it's also a fundamental problem. My view has always been that if you are educated, you need to embrace your education. So you shouldn't judge people based on the ethnic group or the color of their skin or wherever they're from. You should judge people based on their character. Sadly, the Nigerian constitution doesn't do that. It's a tribalist constitution. So we need to address that. We also need to address the problem of religion, and not just religious extremism in terms of violence, but also I think the leaders of our churches also need to be more responsible in their interpretation and application of scripture. I'm a Christian, for example, but I'm not a Pentecostal. I jokingly call them Pentecostalists because you listen to some of these sermons where all the pastor seems to be concerned about is who doesn't tithe and who is tithing and money. I bought a new private jet, or I'm buying a new house. And I'm thinking, what does any of this have to do with the Christianity of Jesus Christ? I mean, Paul in the Bible talked about he has learned to live with plenty. He has learned to live with nothing. But in all things, I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. And he talks about that to live is Christ, but to die is gain. So that's his ultimate gain, which is to die and go to heaven. But you find Christianity in Nigeria where they don't want to die. They all want to be on earth to enjoy their 7 Mercedes and their private jets. You see them actively praying against death, as if death is a curse. Meanwhile, you see Paul, who was saying he wanted to die, that every day he prays that he can die and go to be with Jesus. But you listen to pastors in Nigeria and they are binding and casting against death, almost as if when you die, you're going to some demonic place. So these are the things I think are a problem. I mean, even on the political front, I don't think pastors should become politicians. I think if you're a pastor, you should focus on your church. But I think pastors also have a duty to speak the truth. But what you find in Nigeria is you have pastors who meet with these politicians, but cannot even tell them to their faces that Mr. President or Mr. Governor, this thing is wrong. Instead, they are solely concerned with what offering or what tithe Mr. Governor or Mr. President is going to bring to the church. So yes, I'd say religion is a problem and tribalism too is a problem.
Absolutely. All right. No, thanks for that. So finally, I want us to talk about the EndSARS protest and all that. Of course, we all know that EndSARS didn't start today, but as I said from at the beginning, I do believe that the leaders were shocked that somehow it happened in the way it happened, and which is why they forced themselves to believe that somehow it was funded by people from outside the country. So, but the aftermath, do you think that the root causes are being dealt with, or would you agree with me that they are still being ignored?
Well, it's obvious that the root causes from the start, it was clear to me that the root causes were never going to be addressed. You heard the Attorney General on TV even as the Inspector General was pretending to care about the grievances, the Attorney General was on TV calling the SARS protesters criminals and saying there's nothing wrong with what SARS is doing. And then you saw the panels that were set up. The army, first of all, refused to attend. The police then went to court to challenge the panels, even though the panels were supposedly created by the president. So how can a president create a panel and then the police is going to court to challenge a panel that their own government created? So you saw what happened at the Lekki toll gate, where Fashola, or as they call him, Inspector Fash, was prancing around the place looking for finding some secret camera. Yeah. So it was always clear to me that these people have no interest in solving the problem. But the ultimate slap in the face was the fact that General Buratai, the army chief, who under the chain of command was responsible for the murder, the massacre of people at Lekki, was not only kept in place, but rewarded by being promoted to a Nigerian ambassador. So what this tells you is that there was no interest in trying to solve the problem. If there was, the first person who would have been fired would have been the army chief, because the president would have wanted to know who ordered troops to go and shoot innocent people in Lekki. And the way the Nigerian military works is the president is commander-in-chief, and the next in line is the chief of army staff. Directives go directly from the president to the chief of army staff. So if troops were moved, the chief of army staff would have had to order it. So it was clear to me that these people were not interested in addressing the fundamental problems.
How is it that we've gotten leaders who somehow don't recognize the fundamental rights of people to peacefully assemble?
Well, there's something I often say on Twitter, because I tweet in my spare time on politics, that you cannot plant yam and expect to harvest cassava. If you know Buhari has never been a respecter of human rights. He was a human rights abuser in his first term. Officers and men and businessmen who knew Buhari personally all said this person takes pleasure in people's suffering. So if you elect that kind of person as president, it's a bit bizarre when people are asking, why are human rights not being respected? You planted yam, you should expect to harvest yam, not cassava. So Buhari himself has no interest in these things. So, I mean, the sad part is a few months into his tenure, there was the massacre of the Shiites in the north. They killed over, I think, 400, 500 people. Some of them were even buried alive. At the time, Buhari was on TV justifying it. He said, look, they tapped the chest of a general, and therefore that was right. What is upsetting for me is a lot of the people who later joined the EndSARS protests were the same group of people who were justifying Buhari's statement then. They said, yes, why would Shiites block an army chief? Because one of the myopic problems with Nigeria is when suffering is happening to somebody else, we don't think it will ever come to us. So you find that a lot of the people who were carrying the EndSARS banners, screaming EndSARS, were the same people who justified the brazen attack, basically the genocide against the Shiites. Mm-hmm. And then on top of that, their leader, Sheikh El-Zakzaky, has been detained illegally against court orders since 2015. And a lot of the lawyers who were shouting EndSARS were defending Buhari at the time. So the answer to your question is, it's not necessarily that we have leaders who don't respect human rights. The problem is we elect people who don't respect human rights and pretend to be surprised that they're not respecting human rights.
So do you have any hope for 2023?
I think, as they say, where there's life, there is hope. I have hope because I saw thousands or probably millions of young people, both